based learning. We're given 2 hours, but I hope to be able to finish the presentation before the 2 hours allocated. But I have disclaimers to make, before I start my talk. First is I am not a medical educationist, so I do not have any qualification with regard to being an educationist, I am from health sciences background. Therefore, the presentation will be biased towards health sciences. So I hope those in the audience who are not from health sciences will bear with me, and will try to adopt and adapt, And the other thing is, in my slides, I have violated few rules about slide presentation. I guess because I am ambitious. I hope that especially for my colleague from the basic medical sciences, from the medical faculty, can actually use what I think is, is a comprehensive presentation for your future reference, So I am sorry for that, For some slides are a bit too busy, right? So we can start now. Right. So these are the objective of the presentation today, to expose the participant to student learning, student-centered learning. I am sure many of you are already well versed, with PBL. Maybe some also with team-based learning, but I am going to start from the basic level, and we're going to discuss about PBL and TBL. I'm going to elaborate on the methods and to share with you all my very, very limited experience. So whatever that I am presenting today, these are the things that I have acquired over the years through the piecemeal training that I had, And so I hope that, the participant can also share their experiences, perhaps better experiences, right? So let's look at problem-based learning. I always use this photograph. This is our second batch student, So I think must be years ago. I think they graduated in 2003, and some of them are already specialists. So, and I like this slide, which I actually took from a training that I had from, I think from, the trainer was from North America, So this is what she said, and I think this is very true. Many of us may claim that we are doing PBL, but is it really PBL that, that we are conducting? So we actually will have to reflect. So I will take you through this session, and then, perhaps we all can reflect whether what we are doing is actually problem-based learning or not, So, but there are two points that I would like to make here, Now, if you read literature on problem-based learning, those literatures are actually discussing problem-based learning related to problem-based as a curriculum design. So in medicine, there is problem-based curriculum for the medical program. So the medical-based, problem-based curriculum, it is different from the traditional curriculum, which is a subject-based curriculum. But what we are going to discuss today is basically PBL as an instructional method, or an instructional or a teaching learning method that we incorporate within a traditional curriculum, or perhaps people say hybrid curriculum. So basically in IIUM, our medical degree, the curriculum is not a problem-based curriculum. It is a hybrid curriculum. We sort of take the best of both components, the PBL as well as the traditional curriculum, and we incorporate PBL as a teaching learning method. and it is not problem-based curriculum. So if you read literature on problem-based curriculum, you have to take with a pinch of salt when they are talking about the positive effect and all, because if you are doing PBL as only a teaching learning method, you may not achieve all what that are being discussed in the literature, right? So basically the move towards PBL from the traditional curriculum, the main the main impetus is really the fear, or students are perceived as being inundated with information, with the medical information, and not all these facts are clinically relevant for their future practice. That's why they McMaster come up with this problem-based curriculum. And in the beginning, the original problem-based curriculum, lecture is sort of a forbidden word, but slowly people adopt few lectures, but lecture is not the main method of transmitting knowledge in a problem-based curriculum. The design of the curriculum is around problems. So what is problem-based learning? So this must be elementary for most of us here. So it's learning, contextual learning. The context is the problem given to the student. It's an active learning. You need the other component of the problem-based learning, which is student. Because student will generate learning issues, find answers, share answers. It's a group process, and you have the facilitator. And in our setup, it will be the lecturers. So it's, I've mentioned to you, students are actually responsible for their own learning. It's active learning. They immerse themselves in the discussion. They identify the learning gap, and they actually look for the knowledge. They come back and they discuss. So problem-based, the group activity actually can foster this motivational and emotional component of learning. But again, this would depend on the skill of the facilitator. A facilitator can foster this component or can actually hinder this component. We'll look at that later. In the end, we expect our student to actually also be able to practice reflection, become a good reflective practitioners, because if you do a true PBL, at the end of the session, we should be able to reflect on how we perform. As a facilitator as well, the students are also expected to actually be able to reflect how they perform. And the key to a successful PBL session is that both the facilitators and student understand their role in the problem-based learning. So this is a busy slide, but just to conclude, the positive outcome of PBL. Again, I caution you, these studies are done on a PBL curriculum, not PBL as a teaching learning method. Alright. So in PBL curriculum, of course, the main method of teaching learning would be problem-based learning, right? So they believe that if you compare the level of knowledge, those graduates from PBL curriculum, you compare to the traditional curriculum, they have more or less similar level of knowledge. But again, studies found that those who graduate from traditional curriculum tend to be more confident as compared in their knowledge as compared to PBL. Because we'll talk about this later. But again, PBL graduates tend to perform better clinically. And the other outcome is that students who graduate from PBL curriculum, they enjoy the process of PBL because of the close interaction with the facilitators. They tend to use evidence-based medicine in their practice. And from the perspective of social and cognitive domains, they are better off, in terms of, so these are the two competency expected of them, and they are better to work more efficiently as a clinician, if compared to those graduates from traditional curriculum. So in terms of cognitive domain, they are better off, compared to the those graduates from the traditional curriculum. Again, these are the positive outcomes, increased retention of knowledge, enhanced integration of basic sciences concept into the clinical problems. They develop the self-directed learning skill, and they are more intrinsically motivated, to learn, as compared to those from the traditional curriculum, right? Now, this is just to give you a feel or the flavor of the kind of problem that can be given to the student. Again, this is from our own, So this is part of a trigger or problem given to the student. You see, this is given in the first week of cardiovascular, respiratory, and hematology for the second year student. So it is in the first week, So, 16-year-old Malay, that shouldn't be a problem to the student, Secondary school was referred, I'm sure you don't need to come to medical school to know, that, patients are being referred from one hospital to another by a school health team. So again, they may not know what's a school health team, what's the function, what's the role of a school health team, and the problem is the patient was referred for PELO or PALE. They may not know what is PELO, so they will have to find out the definition of PELO, or some would know PALE, and they may have some prior knowledge. Why do people look pale? Sometimes they will use a layman term, tak cukup darah, in the layman term, so there is some prior knowledge, and what was the school health team doing in this school, in this secondary school? They were actually doing screening for thalassemia. They may have heard of thalassemia, they may know what screening is, and it is part of the National Thalassemia Screening Program. They may have heard, there is a national program, but they may not know what is a National Thalassemia Program, right? From just this first paragraph, there are many things to look for, right? And they have actually not being exposed to subject matter related to thalassemia, subject matter related directly to, patients who are pale, what are the diseases, so they have not, right? So they will go through this cycle. I'm not going to elaborate as for now, but step 1, 2, and 3 will be during the first session of the cycle. Step 4 will be in between the session, and step 5, 6, and 7 will be in the second session, or it depends. Some PBL can last for 3 sessions, so it depends on how you structure or organize the PBL, right? So the gist is, we have the problem posed to the student, all right, and there is this facilitation, right, by the facilitator going on. The student will discuss, the student will search for knowledge, and then you still have the ongoing facilitation, and when they come back, they conclude, and the hope is that they will be able to apply what is learned to other similar contexts. So this discussion is built on the prior knowledge. Now, again, because we are not doing problem-based curriculum, we are just doing problem-based as a teaching learning method. Therefore, it cannot be overemphasized that you need to synchronize with the timetable. There is no point giving the trigger that I showed you previously after we have had a lecture on thalassemia, for example. You have to understand when you use PBL as one of the problem-based learning, the basically lecture is still the main method of delivering the knowledge. I mean, we cannot deny that even in our medical school curriculum. So you have to synchronize. You have got to give this problem before you actually expose the student to anemia, classification of anemia, or even thalassemia. Because you want them to actually search for the knowledge here. If during this process there is a lecture on thalassemia or anemia, it is fine. But at this point, as far as possible, you synchronize the problem-based learning package to come before the delivery of the subject matter, right? Now, then what would be the goals of PBL? Of course, for the student to acquire knowledge. So that will be related to the course content, the course learning outcome, to develop problem solving skill, reasoning skill, to polish their communication skill, to adopt self-directed learning, to learn how to listen, because I think the problem now, even with us, more so with us, is most of us like to talk, very few people like to listen. So it is a skill in itself, I'm referring to myself, so they can offer constructive criticism, of what is being said or what is being suggested, they feel confident to work in a group, it's a group problem solving. They pool the resources, because they will all go and look for, information, right? They can evaluate their performance, peers evaluation, and they are also expected to evaluate the performance of facilitators, and of course to also stimulate the use of resources, right? So what are the learning processes that are involved in PBL? So the first is constructive process. Student construct and reconstruct knowledge, because when you give them the trigger, the problem, they will identify the gap in their knowledge and they will look for the information. So in a way, during the process of constructing, or reconstructing this knowledge, what they do is they activate their prior knowledge. We all have prior knowledge, and some of this prior knowledge is relevant to the present problem that is posed to the student. They identify the gap, and they build on the existing knowledge, they connect the existing knowledge to the new knowledge, so connection between concepts are being made here, and the learning is more effective when new knowledge is actually built on the existing knowledge. For example, you want to talk about mutation and all that, they have already been exposed to the DNA. They know the normal structure of DNA. Now, when you teach them on the mutation, let's say you give a case of related to genetic abnormality, so they build the new knowledge based on the pre-existing knowledge. So that's the first process that is involved in PBL. Now, the second process is self-directed process. So we all are familiar with this. Students are responsible for their own learning. They take charge of their own learning. They plan, they know what to look for. This will be based on the key learning issues identified in the first session, right? So they foster this self-directed learning because they have to search for the information. Now, the other thing is we know that PBL is an active learning. They collaborate, it's a teamwork, right? So the two element here is a collaborative process. The two element is they collaborate and they elaborate on the information, So collaboration is essential, if you look from the motivation and cognitive perspective of learning, it is an important element here, especially in relation to PBL. Now, they collaborate, they bring the information that they had and they elaborate. They elaborate to the group on the new information that they have found, and this will promote deep learning. We are not talking about surface learning. Surface learning has poor retention, all right? So here, when you elaborate, you foster deep learning. Deep learning will, result in subsequent better retention of knowledge, all right? Okay. Now, the fourth process and the last, which is contextual. We know that it is PBL is contextual learning. The learning is supposed to be related to the problem. That is an issue. I mean, personally, I feel, yeah, that we have to actually polish or improve, because what happened many a time when you give the student the problem, yeah, and first session usually there is no problem because they will discuss, they will identify the gap in the knowledge and all that, and then they have the learning issues, yeah, that the information that they have to look for. They divide the task, yeah, they look for the information. When they come back, yeah, the whole session now is turned into like a seminar where, okay, I look for the pathology, so they present the pathology. The other person present on the treatment. The other person present on, for example, the physiology part of it, but without making any connection with the patient or the problem at hand. So this actually defeats the purpose of PBL, because in PBL, you are supposed to use the problem, yeah, to actually be the stimulus for the discussion. So whatever that's being the new knowledge, yeah, that's being shared should be applied to the problem that is given to the student. Yeah. So because here, yeah, you see, when you have a problem, of course, intrinsically it motivates the student to learn. Yeah, because basically when you deliver a lecture, yeah, you may be a good lecturer, yeah, you deliver a lecture, the student praise you for the good lecture that you have delivered, but what is lacking is you don't know whether the student have actually learned. You can only in the education they always say you can only ensure teaching, but you cannot assess learning, right? You cannot assess learning. So here, when you have a context, yeah, so you can actually see whether the student have learned, yeah, the student apply the important concept they have learned, right? So you see, contextual learning can improve retrieval and recall of knowledge, because when it is learned in a context and in real life they have another context, yeah, and they it similar context, so it's easy for them to actually retrieve the knowledge and apply to the clinical context in practice later, right? So in this, why PBL? PBL is supposed to help student learn. PBL is supposed to help students apply the knowledge. Our students do not have problem in terms of regurgitating the information that you've given. Sometimes when they write an essay, if the essay is at recall level, they can produce your PowerPoint slide in the essay, right? So it's low level. What we want is we want them to be able to apply. That's the problem when they need to apply. Yeah. So, and again, PBL helps integrate, yeah, the knowledge from different discipline. We'll look at that later. Of course, acquire necessary knowledge. Yeah. Teach problem solving skill. I've said this repeatedly. Yeah, become a lifelong learner, and of course student enjoy PBL. If you ask for feedback, they look forward to actually PBL session, but again sometimes students say it depends on who is the facilitator. Yeah. So lifelong learning, we always talk about this concept of lifelong learning. So what is actually lifelong learning? To summarize, it's basically a person is able to identify the gap in their knowledge and be able to fill in this gap of knowledge, yeah, that they identify, continuously reflect and update the current understanding, and able to research and to look for new ideas and application. So these are really related to research. Yeah. So what about integration? Yeah, PBL foster integration, supposed to foster integration. Yeah, where student makes connect the knowledge from multiple sources and experience, because integration maximize learning, yeah, and it enables students to construct a useful knowledge base. So if I take our example, now in our curriculum, we apply PBL, a very structured PBL in the first 2 years, and then for the clinical years, I think some department apply PBL, but I am not sure what is the structure of PBL, whether it is really PBL or it's just problem solving. Yeah, I'm not able to actually verify on that. Yeah. So in the first 2 years, so we have the PBL module or the problem given. So here there is horizontal integration where the student should be able to integrate between the basic sciences subject, and there is this vertical integration where there is integration of the clinical sciences into the PBL. Yeah, but again, I have to remind you, this is PBL as an instructional method, and we are not talking about PBL as a curriculum. Yeah. So PBL learning models makes this following assumption. PBL helps to make information understandable and useful. PBL would enhance attitude towards learning. Yeah, and active learning is supposed to also enhance or makes retention and recall better, and it is supposed to help in the reasoning skill, right? So overall, an overview. So how does PBL work? So we have triggers given to student, problem. So triggers presents problem to student. Student will define the problems. Student will analyze the problem. What do you know? Generate a hypothesis or ideas. And what do we need to know? Yeah, so from here, what do we need to know further? So they identify as their learning issues, yeah, key learning issues, secondary learning issues, and then in between the session, they will identify the resources to actually look for this information. They collect the information, yeah, they're supposed to apply the information to the problem, yeah, apply the information to the problem. Is the problem complete? Summarize the problem and reflect on what they have learned and how they have performed. Yeah. So this is a cycle. You have the problem, you have the knowledge, the prior knowledge, the new knowledge, the resources, and the solution and the conclusion. So, you know, if you give triggers to student, yeah, it will not, if you don't brief the student, yeah, as to their roles, if the facilitators do not know what their roles are, yeah, then it will not result in a problem-based learning. So both parties will have to understand, yeah, their roles, yeah. So there should be guidelines, students should be briefed, facilitators should be trained, yeah. So you have the chairperson, you have the scriber, you have the members of the group, and you have the facilitators, and people can also mention the basic rule that they want the group to adhere to. Yeah, for example, the scriber within the group during the session will record the points. Yeah, usually ours on the board. Help the group, you know, when you record, yeah, in a structured way, so the student can see the ideas are being translated into something more structured. Yeah, they are supposed to also participate in the discussion, record the resources used. Yeah, right. And of course, tutor, facilitate. You have the chairperson, which is from the student. Yeah, the chairperson will encourage participation, will invite students who do not participate to participate, maintain the group dynamics. Yeah, keep to time. All right. And you have the group members who are supposed to actually participate fully. So I can only give what we do, yeah, because this is what we do. So we have 2 sessions of PBL, session 1, 2 hours, session 2, 2 hours. In some other curriculum, you may have 3 sessions, 3 1-hour sessions, it depends, yeah. So trigger distributed, the student talk through the scenario, define and analyze the problem, brainstorm, prioritize the problem, decide on the key learning issues, yeah, and all will have a task, 1 or 2 tasks, yeah, to do the private study, and also rightfully, during session 1, you also want the student to identify the core subject matter that everybody has got to do the reading or to search, right? Apart from the tasks that they have divided based on the key learning issues, rightfully the group would also should identify the core subject matter. So that when they come in the second session, we realize some students, when they come for the second session, once they have presented their task, that's it, they're done, right? They if facilitators or the chairperson is not vigilant enough, they will just keep quiet, and they won't participate anymore. That's why it is important to identify core subject matter that everybody will also have to search, to read, so that they can actually participate more effectively in the second session, right? So we have 4 triggers. So all these 4 triggers will be discussed during the first session. So we divide. So it depends on whatever the field that you are in. You can design your triggers. You can even have 2 triggers, less triggers, right? So what is a trigger? A trigger, basically the problem that we pose. So the problem should actually make the student curious to know more. Should trigger interesting discussion, and the need to find out more, right? So we'll talk about problem development again. Now, the problem posed to students should not be too well structured and simple. If it's like too well structured and simple, you may not want to cover the topic through PBL, because it's so simple that you can have just you can give a self-directed learning package, or it can be just a subtopic in a lecture, right? So because too well structured, simple will not trigger interesting discussion, will be demotivating to the student or even to the facilitators. You will find it, how do I conduct this? Because it's so obvious, all right? So depending on the level of the student, year 1, year 2, or even the clinical years, it should be a little bit more complex, ill-structured, to be able to actually trigger the discussion, right? So if we are doing it face-to-face, so we tell the student, we brief the student, this is what we brief the student, but what they do is another thing. So, they divide the whiteboard into 4 columns. The first column will be facts. This will be what they know, what they extract from the trigger. And then from here, what would be their ideas or hypotheses, and what else do they want to know? And that they will list down, and they may find those information in the next trigger, for example. And then as they go along, they're supposed to identify their knowledge gap, and classify into key learning issues and secondary learning issues. So the key learning issues will be, when we develop the guide, I will show you the guide later, the facilitator notes, there will be key learning issues, from the trigger, there will be key learning issues, right? So the students should be able to, achieve or come up with this key learning issue with or without appropriate facilitator prompting. So facilitator role is also to assist student in achieving or in coming into identifying these key learning issues, right? The secondary learning issues will be things, for example, the trigger that I gave you just now, the patient came with pale, patient is pale. So the key learning issue, for example, will be, what are the diseases that cause a patient to be pale, for example. Secondary learning issue will be things like, what is a school health team, for example? So that will be secondary learning issue, not important in actually solving the problem, but it's something that the student are curious. So that can come as secondary learning issue. Now, when preparing the guide, the facilitator guide, you have the scenario, the problem, and we also stipulate the student task, and then we have the facilitator note, and at the bottommost we have the key learning issues for this particular trigger. Things that are important that the student, these are the things that students should find out. Now, many a time the key learning issues that the student need to find out, not many a time, sometimes they are so dissociated from the scenario, from the problem. It cannot be that. The student should be able to derive the key learning issues from the trigger itself. If you give a scenario, but the key learning issues, when you look at it, you know that the student is not going to actually derive this key learning issue from the scenario, then it defeats the purpose. So it is so important for somebody who developed the package to actually think about whether these key learning issues that you write down could be extracted or be identified from the scenario itself. For example, if let's say the first trigger just now I gave, the patient was noted to be pale and then was referred to the hospital, and then in the key learning issues in facilitator guides is written as anatomy of the bone marrow. We know that, the patient being pale related to the red cell. The red cell is produced from the bone marrow, for example. But to extract directly from the bone marrow, it may not, be directly related. But if the student will say, the key learning issue is erythropoiesis, maybe, then it looks more relevant, right? Okay. Now, in the second session, when they have actually acquired the knowledge, then they would come back, they would present, they would elaborate, they would apply those information to the case. I put in red because it's so important to apply the knowledge to the case. Then you foster the application part of it. So everybody contributes and people reflect on how they perform. So now we go to the second session, developing the PBL cases. So, when you want to develop the PBL scenario, the problem, you have to know who is your target audience. It's year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. What do you want to achieve? What are the key messages running across the case? So basically, what do you want to achieve will be guided by what is the intended learning outcome. So I even admit for myself, and maybe some of my colleagues, we actually select a problem, we develop a problem, and the last thing we develop is the intended learning outcome. Actually, it should be the reverse. We list down the learning outcome, we develop the problem, maybe we can go back and refine later. But I personally also violate the rule by actually developing the case first before developing the learning outcomes. So, and then the author of the problem should ensure that they match the level of student mentioned. And again, preparation for PBL problem is difficult. It's time consuming if you want to do it well. If you don't want to do it well, you can take only few hours to prepare. But it is not fair for the student. It is not fair for the student to have a very shabby case given to them. That would not foster discussion, does not stimulate good discussion. So in order to prepare good problem, you have to invest in your time, right? And it is not easy. And you need input from content expert, because facilitators do not have to be content expert. So the first step is think of a problem that you can apply the content of the course, and then define the learning outcomes, and then the second step is to identify the topic or subject that you can integrate in the problem, right? And the third step is you formulate the scenario, as far as possible. yeah, the scenario should be realistic. I mean, most of us have already, facilitate PBL, and when the scenario is not authentic, you will say, what is this, right? I mean, this is not real. I mean, this does not happen in real life. So it sort of hinder discussion, yeah, right? So it has to be realistic for future relevance, yeah, for it to be relevant for future learning, yeah. So as far as possible, should be realistic, yeah, and the scenario should be in line with the learning outcome that you have stipulated. You decide on the trigger, the number of session, and the the time allocated. Like for us, we have already standardized this, yeah. So the fourth step is develop. So you have the scenario, you have the student task. Student task is not difficult. You know, we generally, because it's so generic that it can be used for all problems, yeah. And then write the facilitator guide. I think this is what most of us find difficult, yeah. The facilitator guide, because facilitators are not content expert, therefore you have to develop a good guide for them to read beforehand, yeah, so that they can effectively facilitate the group, yeah. And then you have to identify the key learning issues. So as I've already mentioned, the key learning issues should be in alignment with the problem, yeah. And we are always guilty of this, yeah. Try not to have too many learning issues. Generally, for one trigger, about 3 the most key learning issues, yeah. And the fifth step is the PBL, rightfully to submit the PBL package for content and educational expert to review, yeah, in order to determine the currency of the problem and face validity. Face validity is the lowermost degree of validity, where when you read through and say, this is all right, yeah, it gives you a good feeling, right? And the sixth step, which we don't do, is to try, run and evaluate the package. If I would suggest, instead of having one person to go through the package, the package is ready, the department can have a few people, 3 or 4 people to sit down and give the feedback on the package, yeah. It would be better if we can try run, but we don't have the time, yeah. But since we reuse problem, we reuse the package, so we can actually get the lecturer to give feedback on the package when they run the class, yeah, so that we can improve on the package, yeah. So this is essential, right, to actually evaluate and to improve the PBL package. Again, we repeat the PBL package for the subsequent, but try, we have got complaints from student, yeah, we try to use it alternate years. Sometimes student, they actually refer to the senior, yeah, and they know the case and all that. Actually, it does not matter even if they know the case, because if you are a good facilitator, it's not important, yeah. But again, because student already give that feedback that they already have the bank of similar package, yeah, so we try to actually refine those packages before we give them or reuse. Now, what about facilitators? Again, I've mentioned to you, the general role is to facilitate, encourage active learning and collaboration. You don't impart information, and this is most difficult, especially if you are the content expert in that particular case. Yeah, for example, I'm a hematologist and I'm running PBL and the problem is hematology. Yeah, I tend not to restrain myself. Yeah, you exercise the fact that you are content expert, yeah, so you shouldn't, yeah. Facilitate, do not impart information or provide ready answer. You are not expected to function as content expert, yeah, but you should have sufficient knowledge to keep the discussion focused and for student to identify the gaps, and also for you to identify the gaps and error during the discussion, right? So that's why it is important that a good facilitator guide is developed, all right? And you need to also ensure that the student understand the how PBL works, all right? And then your approach, you have to actually adopt to the level of the student. Are you running this for year 1? Are you running this for year 2? Or sometimes you have a dysfunctional group, the group that just cannot collaborate, cannot discuss. So your approach should be different, right? So what makes a good PBL facilitator? Encourage appropriate interaction, open and trusting environment. You cannot be intimidating to the student. We know that some lecturers are very intimidating. They intimidate student. They feel that student, if they have the feeling that students are not well prepared and all that, the PBL discussion then turn into a tutorial session where the facilitator take over and start asking the student and start scolding the student. You want to force the student to take the responsibility of their own learning. So you have to refrain from doing this. Sometimes I am guilty of this as well. So you should encourage behavior that enhance the session, ensure that everyone participate, and you should, as a facilitator, enjoy facilitating, and enhance reasoning. Guide the student to the key issues. Remember, in the facilitator guide, we have the key learning issues. Facilitator is not just a passive observer. You can be active, you can direct. If you see the discussion is off track, then you can put them back on the track. You should be able also to, give some opinion, not answer, but to guide the student. And as facilitators, we should also be able to reflect on our own performance. So these are the questions that we should ask ourselves at the end of the session. Are we achieving our goals? Could I have done better? Did I intervene appropriately, or I actually dominated the session? Should I have a word with the student? You don't actually just simply, tell a student off during the session. Maybe after the session, you tell the student, can you see me? I would like to discuss certain thing. If you notice that the student is very quiet, not confident, so is the time well balanced? Did everyone participate? So we can actually, we should ask ourselves this. What about student? Again, student, their role, they should participate fully, because basically they are responsible for their own learning. They should adopt professional behavior. So PBL is one of the teaching learning method where you can assess this soft skill. So you can observe and you can assess soft skill of the student, right? So you will find some students are very confident, although their facts are wrong, but they're very confident. Some are very hesitant, silent, maybe they're not well prepared, or they have other problems, right? So this we have discussed this, how students should approach the session. So they should ask the issues, understand, learn from each other, determine learning priorities, concept mapping, critically appraise the point given, ask questions, share information. This will be, you can read on your own. This is I took it from Amy Guide Medical Teacher Journal, guide number 84. Amy Guide number 84 on PBL. Now, what are the example of difficulties with student? You have dominant student. They always want to say something, so you have to silent them. Silent student, you want them to talk. Disruptive student, we have had this. And student persistently, somehow they have a way of trying to actually make the facilitator answer their question, which you shouldn't. All right. And there are some personality clashes. There are times, I have got experience where we have to actually change the group because of this. And there are some group that, are so engrossed in actually reporting the details, that they are, the concept is lost, because they are so engrossed in reporting what they have actually learned. So you use of resources, again, always they will ask, student will always ask, how much detail is enough for a problem-based learning? So it's not an easy question to actually answer, yeah, but you're supposed to have the learning outcome to guide, yeah. Resources is used to develop skill in finding good information. They can bring material to the class, yeah. They can even discuss with seniors, yeah, but of course sometimes information from seniors will have got to be verified again. Use website. There will not be specific list of references. Yeah, how do you deal with information technology? Yeah, this is in face-to-face learning. Of course, discussion is still supreme. Yeah, not reading off the screen. Laptop can be there, yeah, but again, it's only for group tasks, yeah, not for personal use, yeah. So basically, system is used for sharing information. So the group can have ground rule for that, yeah. So purpose of technology is to enhance the group effectiveness. So how do you evaluate problem-based learning? You can do formative assessment. This is, you don't take the mark. The mark is not counted for the summative assessment. Yeah, you can use this, for example, peer review. This is, this is very beneficial, yeah, which we don't actually use. I think we should start thinking about this. It gives, anonymous feedback. The student receive anonymous feedback from the group members, and help them to improve. You can use it as, apart from being formative, you can also take some mark that contribute to the summative. This is as continuous assessment. Again, we as facilitators, we observe and we grade their performance based on parameters or rubric that we have. Again, the contentious issue with this is, people say, how objective can your assessment be? Yeah, more so if you're going to have the session online. Yeah, so when you observe, you grade based on rubric. Yeah, you can be objective up to certain level, but whether it's going to be discriminative, yeah, that's another issue. Yeah, and then summative, we have the end of block exam. So the knowledge, yeah, because the PBL problems, they are related to the content, yeah, the course content. Therefore, when we actually test a student in the end of block, end of semester exam, so those course content, yeah, problem solving and all that will be incorporated into the summative exam, yeah. And rightfully, the student also should have the opportunity to actually assess the facilitator, yeah, for the facilitator to improve. Again, these we do not adopt as well. We don't do. I think we should think of doing it so that facilitator can also improve, yeah. So what what would lead to what would lead to failure to achieve whatever we anticipate, yeah, in PBL is basically people don't understand PBL as an approach, yeah. But we implement PBL, but we don't have the commitment from the staff, yeah. We don't put in enough effort to develop good PBL package, good PBL problem, insufficient preparation, and inappropriate assessment. If students see that we run PBL, but they're not, the course content, the skill, the problem solving and all are not being assessed in the summative exam, then, students are smart. They are test wise. They learn based on what is going to be assessed. So we have got to also pay attention to this. Yeah. So finally, yeah, PBL satisfy the freedom because student, it's more less structured in between the session. They can manage their own time to look for information. It gives them the power, yeah, to be responsible for their own learning. Yeah, they enjoy being in a group. It's fun and it helps survival as well. Yeah. So what about digital PBL? I have no experience in this. I think we're just going to next week or maybe next 2 weeks run a PBL online. Yeah. So this is from a literature which I got, there is no structured way of running PBL online. You can adopt and adapt and see whether, these questions could be answered. Does the tool encourage learner-centered environment? Will the tool allow for collaboration among students? Can the tool be used to facilitate the whole process? Yeah, so these are the questions when you design your own online PBL package. Yeah, so I cannot say much on this because I don't have experience, but this is an area that, is good to explore and it's good to write on. Yeah. Can you see this? Can you see my screen?
Boleh, Prof.
I just want to share, how we prepare the guide. This may not be the best guide, but just to show you the PBL package. So we have the title. This is for the facilitators. We have the diagnosis, when it's going to be used, yeah, the duration, the module is prepared by whom, the aim, the learning outcomes, yeah, stipulated. We also try to incorporate, some Islamic perspective to the case. Then we have trigger 1. This is the scenario given. Then we list down the student tasks here. This is for trigger 1, yeah. And then we have the facilitator notes, yeah, to decide. This is exactly just like the board that student divide, yeah, the facts, the ideas, yeah, to guide the facilitators and what you need to know. This will guide the facilitators because they are not content expert, all right? And then at the end of which we, guide the facilitators. These are the key learning issues, yeah? So we say the above key learning issues are merely a guide for the facilitator. The group may have additional primary or secondary learning issues, yeah? All right? Okay, so I'm done with that. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I think we can continue. On team-based learning, yeah. Oh, busy slide, eh? Now, as opposed to problem-based learning, in team-based learning, it's not a curriculum. It is a teaching learning method. So you can incorporate team-based learning into any type of curriculum. Yeah, it does not matter as a teaching learning. Again, it's student-centered, just like PBL. Yeah, so there is a instructor, not really facilitator, because here, yeah, the person, the academic staff, yeah, the tutor will have to act as content expert. So you have to act as content expert. Whereas in PBL, you are just a facilitator. You don't have to be a content expert. Yeah. So here you must be a content expert. You run is active learning. Yeah. You run small group within a large group. Yeah. We look at that. Yeah. So there are collaborative learning, but within a large group setup. Yeah. Again, students are responsible for their own learning. Yeah. So they are expected to prepare. Yeah, they are expected to collaborate with their team members and also solve and make decision. Yeah. So I've mentioned to you only one facilitator. Yeah. Actually running of facilitator or tutor or content expert instructor actually instructing all the small group, yeah, at one go within a large group setting, yeah, and students still learn in team, yeah, so you still have that teamwork element there, and it's a backward design. We'll talk about that later. Yeah, so in order for team-based learning to be effective, yeah, you've got to follow the sequence of how you conduct the team-based learning. It started in business school, yeah, and then now it's being adopted by almost all field of studies, yeah, I think for us, especially for professional courses, like for example for medical course, we have like a prescription by the Malaysian Medical Council as to, based on the learning activities, what is the ratio of student to lecturer. For example, if we call a session tutorial, then the ratio must be 1:16 student. And they are very strict about this, because if you don't follow that ratio, it is considered as violation of the rule. It's like in ISO you can get an NCR based on that. So if you cannot fulfill this, I think team-based learning is an option, to replace that tutorial, right? So this will be the scenario of team-based learning. The only thing is, when I conduct team-based learning, I find, the way the lecture hall is a bit difficult, but, can still run the session. So what is team-based learning? So I've mentioned to you is active learning. It's opportunity for students to apply the concept, what they have learned, the conceptual knowledge, but it's done in a sequence events, individual, team, and they get immediate feedback. It is still considered student-centered, and students are exposed to problem as well. So it does promote all the soft skill competency that we want. And students still learn in a small group, but in a large setting. And as an academic staff, you don't need separate room to run this, and you don't need multiple academic staff to run the session. And basically, you don't actually have the skill. You don't have to have the skill, or maybe minimal skill of actually conducting group work. Not like PBL, you really have to understand the dynamic of the group. So the three characteristics of team-based learning is individual advanced student preparation, individual and team readiness assurance test, TRAT or IRAT, and in majority of the time in the class is actually spent on discussion, right? So recent published literature, for example, in nursing education, when they compare to lecture-based, they found that team-based learning actually improve academic performance and skill development. They improve, or help to develop communication skill, interprofessional learning, self-directed learning, all right? And they have done a study to look at the effect of TBL among science student, technology student, engineering student, mathematics student, and medical student. And they found that during TBL, student actually demonstrated obvious engagement during the process of learning, and it has positive effect in terms of how, or in terms of understanding the key concept related to the subject matter. So how does TBL work, right? So you have the pre-class assignment. For example, you assign the student to read a chapter or lecture notes, or certain research paper depending on the level of the student. Watch a video, or you provide the reading materials. And then they come in, they do individual readiness assurance test. Usually it will be in the form of MCQ, no discussion allowed, and then answer will not be revealed. You can take the individual score, or if you're doing it, the session for formative, then you don't, they only the student will know the score. And then they move to the team readiness assurance test. They work on the same set of questions, but this time, with the team member, and they would have to have consensus with regard to the answer, and then the tutor give the feedback, and then they move to the team application. Here they will be presented with problems, they solve the problem, and the concept that will be used to solve the problem is already dealt with in this individual readiness assurance test. And then they get the feedback, and you can also, if you want to have the team score as part of maybe continuous assessment, is doable. So I'm going to present to you from the student perspective and from the instructor or the lecturer's perspective. Now, from the student perspective, step one, they will have to actually do the assignment prescribed. Yeah, so there is this advanced assignment given. Yeah, so they receive list of activities, learning activities accompanied. So for example, if I want to deal with thrombosis, yeah, as the general pathology concept, or maybe in hematology, I want to deal with hematological malignancy, for example. So I will say, revise your lecture on this and go to textbook chapter number what, yeah, for the pre-class assignment. So here they have the advanced assignment here. Then this is outside class. Then you see the three phases. Phase one, preparation. Phase two, they have the readiness assurance process, individual and team. And third session will be the team application. Now I run the session about 2 hours, yeah, and I find that's sufficient. It's not boring because full of activities, yeah. I must say that, you know, I am not experienced. Yeah, I run this session for my pathology, general pathology and hematology. Yeah, I'm still, you know, struggling, trying to find out the best way. Yeah. So then from advanced assignment, when they come to class, they will do the individual readiness assurance test. All right. So in individual readiness assurance test, you provide the student with a set of 10 to 20 MCQ, focusing on the concept that they will have to apply when they do the team apps later, when they do the team problem solving. Yeah, it has to be related. It cannot be dissociated, or else, you know, you're not ensuring that the student master the concept, the knowledge content before moving into problem solving, right? So they do the team, this individual readiness test, IRED, and then they move into step 3 here, which is the TRED, or the team readiness assurance test. Yeah. So here what happened, they will be in the first the individual readiness assurance test, IRED, you don't reveal the answer. Yeah, they just do. Yeah, if you want the score, you can have a mechanism where students submit. Yeah, but they will again group after that. Yeah, and discuss the same question again within the group. Yeah, and they will have to come to consensus as to what would be the answers to the question, right? And then, yeah, then they move to the next stage, step 4, which is instructor clarification review. Yeah, so during this session, the instructor would ask all at one group members, yeah, simultaneously to put up the answer. Let's say question 1, you have, you know, the card, yeah, A, B, C, D, E. So they will have to put up simultaneously, yeah. And the instructor can also ask any group member. So you have to, you know, have the list of name. So you call out randomly, because student then will be ready. If you ask only the group leader, then the rest will just be very laid back. Yeah, so if you know, they give a wrong answer, they don't agree, for example, the group don't agree with the answers, then they can actually give their reason, and the discussion can so that will enhance the discussion, right? So they get the immediate feedback on their decision, they get clarification. So as the discussion goes on, then whatever the concept that need to be clarified will be clarified before they move to the problem solving stage, right? So done with the instructor clarification, the instructor will clarify. So you see here, they get immediate feedback as to the answer to the question, and the discussion will take place here. And then they move to step 5, which is team apps or team application. So here we already designed, yeah, problems 1, 2, depending on the time. Yeah, so the student will then in a group, yeah, try to solve this. It can be you have the scenario, and it can be multiple choice, that would be easier, or short answer where few words answer, not lengthy answer, because you will need the student to project their answer, all teams to project their answer. I find it easier if you give multiple choice. So these problems should challenge the student to make interpretation, calculation, prediction, analysis, or synthesize information. All right. Okay. Then step 6, if they disagree, they can appeal, to the answer. They disagree, they give the reason, or even, they can appeal after class as well. And you can also do peer evaluation of the team members. Now we are going to look at from the instructor perspective or from the lecturer's perspective. All right. Now, step 1, because now you're going to prepare for the team-based learning. Step 1, is termed as situational factor, student prior knowledge. So, what is, the student prior knowledge? Then, based on this, you write down the learning outcome. What do you want the student to learn from this session, right? So, you have here situational factors or the learning goal, all right? The learning goal here, all right? So you design, and then you start by designing first the team application, the problem. Remember the last step that the student have, so you design that first based on whatever you want to the student to learn. So you have to align to the learning outcome that you have stipulated. What do you want the student to learn? So this team problem solving, the problem that you design will have to be aligned with what you want the student to learn. It has to challenge. It cannot be straightforward, simple, where student can solve the problem individually. It has to be a problem that uses team power to solve the problem, all right? If it's straightforward, simple problem, then it will not work, right? And it has to be realistic and authentic, Now, once you have designed that, you have designed the second step, you have already designed the team application. Then you move to step 3. Oh, okay, the pointer is like moving. You design to step 3, where you design the multiple choice question for the individual readiness assurance test and team readiness assurance test. Now, before that, the team, the problem that you're going to design, for the student, the last step there, the problem solving, it has to follow this 4S. It has to be significant problem. We have already mentioned that. Important, authentic. So it must test the application of important concept, and the number of question. It's not the quantity that matters. It's the quality of the question. All right, the quality of the question that matters. Now, every group will have the same problem. Why? Because you want this, you don't want, if you have different problems, studies have shown that, people are only the teams, they would be engrossed only in presenting their case. After they have presented, they're not bothered with others because, they have to endure listening to other people. So that's why it's advocated that you should have same problem. And then when you have same problem, you do not eliminate or you retain the inter-team accountability, because they can discuss, because they all are doing the same or are solving the same problem. And question, the specific, the question that you pose, specific choices refer to the question, the question that you ask, in this problem solving should address important concept, analyze, should be application, and they should report the answer simultaneously, right? And step 3, I mentioned, then only you design the individual readiness assurance test and team assurance test. They are the same, isn't it? Here, it's multiple choice question. Now, the question must be related to the concept that the student are going to apply in solving the problem just now that you have designed. You see, you work backwards. First, you look at the learning outcome, you design the problem, yeah, and then from the problem you design the individual readiness assurance test must be related to the problem, so that when the student move to solving the problem, they have already clarified, yeah, they have the correct knowledge of the concepts that are going to be applied in the problem solving. Yeah, so if you see here, yeah, you have step 1, step 2, step 3, isn't it? Yeah, and then only you decide on the advanced assignment. Yeah, so the advanced assignment, the assignment that you want the student to read and all that, of course must be related to the IRAD and also the concept that you're going to test them in the problem solving. Yeah, so it has to be aligned. So then only you determine. You shouldn't determine the assignment first, develop the IRAD or TRAD first, and then only the problem. Yeah, it shouldn't work that way. It should be the reverse, right? Okay, and then the last session will be the instructor instructor clarification. Yeah, where the student will pose the answer simultaneously, and then there will be discussion. Yeah, the guide says create an instruction clarification review, where you have, you know, like notes or something on review. I think I mean, I personally don't prepare this, because I find that if you are content expert, you can actually, you know, instantaneously respond to the any question or any issues raised by the student. Yeah, so you don't have to do the prior preparation. So you see, it takes a lot of work. Yeah, but I think it is worth. Yeah, so you see, you have already fulfilled all the steps. Yeah, all the steps here. And during the clarification, you can also consider the team's appeal for an alternate answer. They don't agree, they feel that the wording of the question is not clear. Yeah, then, you know, you should allow them to make them suggest, how do you think we should word the question? Yeah, and then they should give reason. Yeah, all right, and maybe provide references, all right, as to justify the answer, right? And a non-recurring step would be, you know, the team formation. Try not to, you know, ask a student to form their own team. Yeah, you can assign the team, and if you have multiple sessions, the guide advised that you have the same team throughout the course. Yeah, you should brief the student as to what team-based learning is. Yeah, you should also, I mean, it's advocated that we adopt peer evaluation, right? What about grading? I personally use for formative assessment only. Yeah, but if you look at the literature, the team-based learning mark can actually contribute to continuous assessment. Yeah, for example, they divide between IRAD, TRAD, and TAPS and peer evaluation. Yeah, so you must have a mechanism where you know, the student can submit the answer first and then proceed to the TRAD. Yeah, maybe during the you can use, or maybe they can access online if, you know, the resources permits that. Yeah, so that you can get the answer. I mean, collect the answer submitted. Yeah. Now, why does team-based learning work? It works because students are accountable, are responsible to prepare and to learn. They get immediate feedback. It also incorporates problem solving. Yeah, and the students are engaged with the course content. Yeah, because you stipulate the learning outcome, and the learning outcome should be related to the course content, and also they work collaboratively. Yeah, right? And is team-based learning worth the effort? Well, preparing the module, as you see, the step that I have taken you through is labor intensive. Yeah, it's labor intensive, but it's satisfying. Yeah, but again, sometimes we also learn. when you conduct the session, then you say, okay, this question is not appropriate, this problem, there's something wrong with this problem, so you can improve. We also learn, yeah. So it's as the point here says, a shift of emphasis from covering the content to applying the content. Is it okay to have a lecture on the subject matter first and then have run the TBL? Yes, it is fine, yeah, because it's not problem-based learning, it's about applying what has been learned. Now, as opposed to PBL, you have several facilitators. Yeah, sometimes the message that gets across varies. Yeah, whereas for TBL, one instructor, one message. Yeah, one class. Only you run one class. Yeah, simultaneous reporting, and you have the the team function naturally. But the only thing is, I find our lecture hall, it's a bit difficult for students to move around, and sometimes I am guilty also. I let them go out to different rooms, so I don't get to observe during the discussion, yeah, because of the space problem and then the way, yeah. But the next time if I get to do it, then I will try to make them stay in the class so that I can observe. Yeah. So I think that's all right. That's about all for the team-based learning. It surprises me also. It ended abruptly. Yeah. So basically, you see the difference between PBL and TBL. Yeah, but I think team-based learning is fun. Yeah, I think it can replace tutorial. Yeah, but it takes a lot of effort on your part to prepare. Problem-based learning, we some of us are doing it. Maybe we can polish the way we do it, can refine. Yeah. So I think that's all that I would like to impart. Maybe if you have question, yeah. Oh, the question. Oh yeah, it's in the chat, is it?
Yes, Prof.
PBL preparation should consist of pre, during, and post as well, correct? I don't quite understand, but if you are actually referring to, a certain school, yeah, when they have PBL package, they have, is it a meeting prior where the facilitators would meet and the person who designed the PBL package would brief the facilitators as to what is expected? Is that what is you meant by pre? If that is, then yeah, it is done. When we started, we did that, but after some time, some people still feel that we should. Some people feel that we are so well versed with the method and all that, we don't need, because we prepare good facilitator guide, so we don't have to have the pre. I don't understand during and the post. The post, you are allowed to give feedback to the person who designed or the coordinator. Sister or Dr. Yusra, can I get clarification on your question?
Assalamualaikum.
Salam.
Okay, what I mean over here is because one of the slides just now showed that we need to be fully prepared to apply PBL in our course, in our learning. Alright, so is the preparation consists of pre-planning the lesson, and then during the lesson, what should we look for, what should we act on, and then post, maybe it's kind of feedback that we can evaluate ourselves.
Yeah, when we decide to apply PBL, I don't know, it cannot be at individual lecturer level. I'm not sure if you are the only one teaching your course, perhaps then at individual level. But preparation means when you decide to apply, you have to know how do you want to apply, incorporate, how do you want to synchronize to the timetable, the PBL package that you prepare, yeah, should address whatever that you decide to do, and then the student should know the concept of PBL, how should they function in a PBL, yeah, and then in terms of feedback, yes, the student can receive peer feedback, and we as facilitator also actually should receive the feedback. And when you decide to apply PBL, you also have to decide whether you want to do it solely as formative, as just teaching and learning, so that student could get feedback on how they are doing, how they are faring, or you want to also incorporate the summa as part of the continuous. So those are the logistic and things that you would want to think of in terms of preparation. I hope I've answered the question. Okay. Any other question?
Assalamualaikum, Prof.
Waalaikumsalam. Yeah.
I'm Dr. Baiyah from BMS.
Uh-huh.
So, Prof, during this ERTL, we actually converting PBL into case discussion. So, I want to know what are the difference, case discussion and also PBL.
Okay, Dr. Baiyah. If I am going to be strict, fully strict on medical education, there is no such thing as case discussion. Right? There is no such thing as case discussion. Case-based discussion in strictly in the medical education terminology applies to an assessment method that is used namely for postgraduate assessment, where a case is being taken, then you have the candidate in front, with the notes, and the examiner will ask the student based on the case note. So there is really no such terminology. It's something that we invented, in a way, maybe also is done by others, because when we have one of the accreditation visit, they felt that the number of hours dedicated to active learning is compared to the whole curriculum for that particular block is too minimal in terms of percentage. So they want us to increase. So we develop this case discussion. We just given a case and then student go, because we do not have the number of staff, enough number of staff to increase the number of PBL. So I would suggest, maybe the department would like to look at increasing the number of PBL, which people may not like. What about the case discussion? The case discussion must be more, if you ask me personally, must be more engaging in the sense that it cannot just be a case, and then if you look at the task that the student have to do, the task in a way is just like a seminar presentation, does not address the application part of it. So to improve the case discussion, should address the application part, then it can be something like maybe mini PBL. But strictly speaking, there is no such thing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Okay. Any other question?
Prof?
Yes.
I have a question actually.
Yeah.
So PBL and team-based learning is normally in groups, kan? So in your experience, do you prefer for the group members to be selected by the student themselves, or do you prefer the group to be random?
You see, for PBL, we assign, the practice is we assign the group, and we assign the group, which means throughout year 1, they will be in the same group, throughout year 2, in the same group, and we have a mixture of good student, middle performing student, and also weak student. We mix them, based on their attainment in the examination, all right. So we mix them. For TBL, it's different because you are running in the class, and then you just group them. To me, it does not matter. It's just that sometimes the easy way out, I will say, okay, PBL 1 and 2, one team, 2 and 3, so we're still based on PBL group. But it's a bit difficult because in our lecture hall, sisters one side, brothers one side, so you want them to not move, because of the problem. So you can, sometimes I just divide the sisters, the brothers, different. But you don't do it before class, and you have the name list so that you can call out names to answer, so the student will always be ready.
Okay. So normally percentage for PBL tu, like say you still have your final exam kan, so the carry mark yang allocated for PBL ni normally how many percent?
Dia kalau en block exam, for PBL we have it contributes 10% lah to the continuous assessment. This is just assessment of apa dia?
Macam sikit je Prof, sebab the work is a lot kan?
But you have to remember this 10% is purely 10 marks for the entire marks. Dia tak ada percentage dah from there. It's 10.
I see. Okay.
Not, it's 10.
Betul.
The end block examination then will be 70%, and the content and all that, problem solving, all will be in the end block. Whereas the 10% only given to their participation, the task performance and all that. If you say, do we assess objectively? It's a contentious issue, even after years, you will find that when you look at the mark, it does not discriminate the good student from the poor student. But again, something that we have to remember, when it's PBL assessment, their participation and all that, it cannot reflect whether they are good or not good. I mean, some weak students have good communication skill, they're willing to do the task and all that. It's just that, when they perform in the exam, they're not so good. So you cannot argue based on that.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Okay.
So, any other questions from the participants?
Okay, so if there are no questions, I hope that you will try and apply team-based learning. And problem-based learning is a bit difficult because you can't do it at individual level. Whereas team-based you can. PBL, maybe it has to be, the decision at departmental level. So I think I thank you for listening.
Prof Ninun. Prof, okay. So based on my experience kan, it's quite difficult. I know that we were not supposed to give answer to the students, but it's quite difficult if we don't give answer to them at the end of the discussion, because if we check back when we have another sessions, they definitely are not going to look for the answers. So what should I do actually? Should I give the answers, or should I ask them to go back and look for it again?
Okay. This is for PBL, Dr. Ani?
Yes, PBL, Prof.
Okay. Now, people try to overcome this because of, there are different facilitators actually facilitating the session. So they want to standardize, they want to make sure the student leave the session with correct knowledge and all that. So there are some medical school which, after completing the PBL session with different groups, I don't know, maybe in the clinical years it's more smaller group, they have a plenary session, plenary session where all students will attend the plenary session, and the content expert of that particular case will then go over with the student again to brief on certain concept to make sure that, the knowledge standardized. But so that sounds good, isn't it? Because you want to make sure the student get the answer. But the drawback of that is that students don't do well during the session because they know there will be a plenary session which will give them, the answer and the knowledge. That's a drawback. So you have to decide, maybe you end the session and then you I guess you conclude, but if student, you know, they are conditioned to the fact that they will get, you know, all the answer explanation from you, then it's not good lah.
Yes, Prof. That's the reason why at the end of you know, when when we discuss, and then I asked them to go back some of the facts. For instance, I leave it as, okay, which one do you think is correct? Okay. Because some of dear friends were saying these answers, the other is saying that answers, and when I give them clues, they still can answers. Okay, why don't you go back and look for it, and then come back to me and tell me which answers is correct actually. But when I sat back during another classes, they still did not look for it actually. So at the end of the day, I think dah susah tau nak bagi dia belajar ni.
Yeah, I think kan maybe we should reiterate the concept that you are responsible for your learning. If you don't do your part, you know, there's nothing I can do. Maybe they are adult enough to be able to, you know, be responsible for that lah. Kan? I mean, it's beyond us in a way.
Okay, understood and agree, Prof. Thank you.
Okay, so sister, I think I'm done. Thank you. And for any shortcoming, I am so sorry. I will share the slide. Yeah, I will give the slide to CPD and maybe they will share with you. And I forgot to address my references. Yeah, is Ronald Harden textbook, A Guide to Medical Teachers, and also from the journal, Medical Teacher Journal, Amy Guides to PBL, guide number 84, and Amy Guide to Team-Based Learning, guide number 65. Those are my main references. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. So I think we can end our workshop today.
Okay.
So let's end our session with Tasbih Kifarah and Surah Al-As.
Subhanakallah. Asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you,
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Prof.
Welcome.